I was scrolling through Reddit the other day when I stumbled across this wild post. Some guy's girlfriend was cheating on him, and get this, she did not even try to hide it. She was completely open about the whole thing, like it was nothing special. That post hit me hard because it reminded me of my own ex. I have not really talked about what happened between us, mostly because the whole situation was a mess and honestly painful to relive. But after reading that story, I figured maybe it was time to get it off my chest. This all went down about 2 years ago, so bear with me as I walk you through it. I met my ex on a dating app. I'm going to call her Madison. It was not one of those hookup apps where people are just looking for a one-night thing. This was supposed to be a serious platform where folks actually wanted real relationships. At the time, I was 33 and Madison was 30. We matched pretty quickly, started chatting, and honestly, there was something there right from the start. It's hard to put into words, but we just clicked. We had the same weird sense of humor, liked the same movies and music, and we could talk for hours without ever running out of things to say. That kind of connection felt rare, you know? After a couple weeks of texting and talking on the phone, I finally worked up the courage to ask her out on a real date. I was nervous as hell, not gonna lie. Madison was gorgeous. I mean, she was the kind of beautiful that makes you do a double take. I'm not saying I'm ugly or anything. I think I'm a pretty average-looking guy. But she was something else entirely. She was way out of my league, or at least that's what I kept telling myself. I remember thinking that maybe this wouldn't turn into anything serious, because women who look like that usually have guys lining up around the block. I didn't want to set myself up for heartbreak by falling for someone who had unlimited options. I know that sounds like a weird problem to have, but dating someone incredibly attractive comes with its own set of challenges that most people don't think about. Anyway, she agreed to go out with me, and the date went better than I could have hoped. Everything I felt during our online conversations was real. We just fit together perfectly. After that first date, we started seeing each other more and more, and before I knew it, we were officially together. Things moved fast, but it felt right. One thing that was always in the back of my mind was how much attention Madison got from other guys. She would tell me about it sometimes, almost casually. Even when we were out together, guys would hit on her right in front of me, like I was invisible or something. She also got constant messages on social media from random dudes trying their luck. At first, I tried not to let it bother me. I trusted her. She seemed genuinely into me and not interested in anyone else. Looking back, I realize how naive that was, but at the time, I was just happy to be with her. I did not want to be that jealous, insecure boyfriend who ruined everything by being paranoid. For the most part, things were going great. We had this easy, comfortable relationship where everything just worked. But then one night, something happened that stuck with me. We were having one of those late-night conversations where you talk about random, silly stuff. The topic of hall passes came up. If you do not know what that means, it's this hypothetical game where you and your partner each pick one celebrity you would be allowed to sleep with, no consequences. It's supposed to be just for fun, totally harmless, but sometimes these games reveal things people are actually thinking. What struck me as odd was that Madison brought it up. Usually I'm the one who starts these kinds of stupid conversations. She said her hall pass would be Justin Timberlake, which seemed fair enough. The guy is good-looking and talented. But then she said something that really got under my skin. She said with this little smirk on her face, "I don't think there are many celebrities who would say no to me." She said it like she was completely serious, like it was just a fact. Now, I knew she was beautiful. I had always known that. But hearing her say it out loud like that just rubbed me the wrong way. It made me feel like she thought she could have absolutely anyone she wanted, and that made me uncomfortable. It felt out of character, too. Despite her looks, she had always seemed pretty down-to-earth and humble. This comment felt arrogant in a way I hadn't seen from her before. I didn't say anything at the time, I just laughed it off and we moved on to talking about something else. But that comment stayed with me. I kept replaying it in my head over the next few days. Eventually, the feeling faded and things went back to normal, but I never completely forgot about it. Things were really good for a while after that hall pass conversation,
But then I started noticing changes in Madison's behavior. It was subtle at first, but over time it became harder and harder to ignore. She started coming home later than usual. Normally, she would get home from work around 6 in the evening, but then it became 7, then 7:30, sometimes even later. And the excuses she gave were weak, really weak. She would say things like, "Oh, I just lost track of time," or "I ran into a friend and we ended up chatting." It was strange because she used to be so detailed about her day. If she was late because of work, she would tell me everything, what project she was dealing with, who she talked to, all of it. Now I was getting these vague, meaningless explanations. On top of that, she got defensive if I asked about it. If I said something like, "Hey, you're home pretty late, everything okay?" she would snap at me. She would get all worked up and accuse me of being controlling or not trusting her. I didn't want to fight, so I usually just dropped it. I'm not a confrontational person, especially when someone is already in a bad mood. But the late nights kept happening, and the vague excuses kept coming. My gut started telling me something was not right here. I tried to push the feeling away, but it got harder and harder to ignore.
Finally, I decided I had to say something. I asked her if everything was okay. I said, "You have seemed different lately. Is something going on?" She denied it, of course. She told me everything was fine, that she was just stressed with work. The usual excuses. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But a few days went by and the same pattern continued. I could not keep it inside anymore. I brought it up again, telling her that her behavior seemed unusual and that I was worried about her. This time she seemed to understand where I was coming from. She actually apologized and said it was all just stress and exhaustion, nothing personal. I understood what she was saying, but something in my gut told me not to believe it completely. After that conversation, things seemed to improve, at least on the surface. She was more open and talkative. When she came home late, she would tell me stories about what she had been doing, but those stories felt hollow. There was something about the way she told them, the lack of detail, the way she avoided eye contact, that just did not feel right. I remember one specific night when she came home late and told me she had run into an old coworker and they grabbed drinks together. As she was telling me this story, it hit me like a lightning bolt. I just knew she was lying. I cannot explain how I knew, but I had this overwhelming feeling that she was hiding something, something big. And that is when the thought entered my mind for the first time. She is having an affair. This was not just some small issue or misunderstanding. This was a full-blown affair. I knew I could not just let it go. I could not pretend everything was fine anymore. I needed to find out the truth, one way or another. Okay, so there I was, convinced that my girlfriend was cheating on me. My first instinct was to check her phone. That's where all the evidence would be, right? Text messages, emails, social media, all of it. But I quickly realized that would not work. First of all, she was always on her phone. It would be nearly impossible to get it away from her long enough to actually search through it. And even if I managed to grab it, I'm not exactly a tech genius. I wouldn't know where to look or what to look for. Plus, she probably deleted anything incriminating anyway. On top of all that, I needed real proof. I didn't want to find one suspicious text message and then confront her with it. I wanted to catch her in the act. I wanted to know for sure, without any doubt. So, I decided to take a different approach. I was going to hire a private investigator. Yeah, I know it sounds like something out of a movie, but I was desperate. I needed the truth, and I wanted someone who actually knew what they were doing to help me find it. I wanted to know who this guy was and where they were meeting. I did a Google search for private investigators in my area and found one with good reviews. I called them up and set up a meeting. I remember feeling really nervous when I walked into their office. It felt like I was admitting defeat, like I was giving up on trying to figure this out myself. I sat down with the investigator, a guy who looked like he had seen this kind of thing 1,000 times before, and I told him everything. I explained the whole situation, from the hall pass conversation to the late nights and weak excuses. It took me a while to get through it all,
but he just listened calmly and nodded along. He didn't judge me, he didn't make me feel stupid, he just listened. Then he told me he had seen this type of situation hundreds of times before. He said he would prefer to do surveillance for 2 weeks since her late nights were unpredictable, but that it was going to be somewhat expensive. We eventually settled on 10 days. I gave him all her information, phone number, email, where she worked, all of it. Before I left, he told me not to contact him until the 10 days were up unless there was an emergency. "It's going to be tough," he said to me, "but you need to let me do my job." I agreed. I knew it was going to be torture, but I had to trust him. Those 10 days were some of the longest alive of my entire life. It was torture knowing that this investigator was following my girlfriend around and might uncover proof that confirmed my worst fears. I felt completely helpless. All I could do was wait and wonder and imagine every possible scenario. I could not focus on anything else. Work was a nightmare. I barely slept, I hardly ate, and the worst part? During those 10 days, Madison kept coming home late. 3 times she came home after 9 p.m., using the same tired, pathetic excuses. Oh, I had last-minute plans with friends. Traffic was terrible. She had no idea that every time she said those things, it just confirmed my suspicions even more. Every time she was late, I thought to myself, okay, this is it. This is when the investigator is going to catch her. It just gave him more opportunities to get the evidence I needed.
Finally, the 10-day period ended. The investigator called me right on time. He did not say much over the phone, just that he had the information I needed and asked if we could meet in person. I said yes, absolutely. This was something I needed to hear face to face. I could not handle hearing this kind of news over the phone. I had been waiting for what felt like forever, and I needed to see his face to know for certain that what he was about to tell me was real. I drove to his office, my hands shaking on the steering wheel. I felt sick to my stomach. When I walked in, he was sitting there with a manila envelope on the desk in front of him. He gestured for me to sit down. Then he asked me if I wanted him to just explain what he found or if I wanted to look through the envelope myself. I told him I wanted to hear it from him first. I figured it would soften the blow a little. In my mind, I compared it to walking in on your partner cheating, having a moment to brace yourself before the gut punch. He took a deep breath and said, "Your suspicions were correct." Just like that. No beating around the bush, no sugarcoating it. He told me that he had followed her to an apartment building 3 times. Each time she went in alone and left about 2 hours later, always with the same man. He had gotten the apartment number and the guy's name. Let me call him Derek. Obviously, I am changing the name. To be honest, my first thought was that I wanted to find this Derek guy, and let us just say I was not thinking peaceful thoughts. But then I realized that was not the point. The point was that my girlfriend, the woman I loved, had betrayed me. That is what I needed to focus on. The investigators slid the envelope across the desk. I opened it, and there they were. Pictures. Photos of her and this Derek guy standing in front of the apartment building, hugging, holding hands, kissing in front of her car. He was all there, in black and white. Undeniable proof. I almost lost it. I almost broke down right there in his office. It's one thing to suspect something, to have a gut feeling, but seeing it with your own eyes is a completely different experience. The visual evidence was overwhelming. I managed to hold back tears, but it was hard. It was not just the affair. It was the realization that my entire life, the future I had imagined with her, was crumbling right in front of me. I wasn't sure what to do next, but I knew I had to confront her. When I got home, I asked her to sit down. I did not yell. I did not make a scene. I said calmly, "We need to talk." She could tell something was off. She saw it on my face. She sat down, and I just laid everything out. I told her I knew about the affair. I told her I had hired a private investigator. I told her I had proof. Her first reaction was shock. She just stared at me, her mouth slightly open. Then she tried to play it cool, to act like nothing had happened, but I was not having it. I told her everything the investigator told me, about the apartment building, about Derek, everything. And she just sat there, silent.
She did not deny it. She did not apologize. She didn't even try to explain herself. She just sat there, listening. The more I talked, the angrier I got. Her silence was infuriating. She didn't seem to care or to be sorry for what she had done. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. I told her I wanted to break up. I said, I cannot do this anymore. I can't keep playing this game. I'm done. And then she did something completely unexpected. She laughed. She actually laughed. She stood up like she was trying to intimidate me and started this whole speech. "You want to leave me?" she asked. "Are you kidding?" So what? I had a little fun on the side. It was just physical. It didn't mean anything. I'm a cheater, fine, but where do you think you're going from here? Do you think you'll ever find someone like me again? Hasn't it not been obvious to you all these years that I'm out of your league? It was one mistake. Is that what you want to throw our whole life away over? She said a lot more along those lines, basically trying to make me feel lucky, like I should just be grateful to be with her even if she cheated. Can you believe that? I was stunned. I knew she was arrogant. I knew she thought highly of herself, but this was a whole new level. This was not a sincere apology. This was not the reaction of someone who had been caught and wanted to make things right. This was the reaction of someone who didn't care, someone with a genuine bad attitude. It felt like her ideal situation was for me to just accept that she was too good for me, that she could do whatever she wanted, and that I should be happy just to be along for the ride. She honestly thought I wouldn't have the guts to leave. That's how full of herself she was. Her words hit me like a ton of bricks. I had felt hurt and angry before, but this was different. This was pure rage. I had never felt anything like it. I stood up, looked her dead in the eyes, and told her how much I hated her. I don't remember the exact words, but they were something along those lines. And then I walked out. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't say goodbye. I just walked out the door. I couldn't stand to be in the same room with her for another second. I felt completely betrayed. It was over. I ended up staying at a cheap motel that night. I couldn't go back to the house, not yet. I just needed to be alone and process everything that had happened. I laid there in that uncomfortable bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the confrontation in my head over and over. I couldn't believe the way she had reacted. It was just unbelievable. The next day, I went back to the house to get some of my stuff. I figured she would be at work, but she was there. She looked like she had been crying, but she was trying to act tough, like nothing was wrong. And then, get this, she had the nerve to say, "I knew you would be back," with this smug little grin on her face, like I had just thrown some little tantrum and come crawling back to her. I didn't say anything. I just went inside and grabbed some clothes, toiletries, and other essentials. I knew I couldn't get everything in one trip, but I just wanted to get out of there as fast as possible. I said, "I'll be back for the rest of my stuff later." She just stood there, staring at me, her face full of disbelief, like she couldn't believe I was actually leaving. She didn't say anything until I was walking out the door. Then she just muttered something under her breath that I didn't catch, and frankly, I didn't care. I've been trying to understand why she acted the way she did. I'm still having trouble wrapping my head around it. Maybe she was looking for validation or excitement outside of our relationship. Maybe she was insecure about getting older or about our relationship becoming routine. And maybe she saw me as safe and dependable, but also as someone she thought was beneath her. And maybe because she had always felt that way, she didn't think that cheating was that big of a deal. She had already rationalized it in her own mind. Of course, all of this is just me guessing, trying to make sense of something that doesn't make sense. After I left, Madison started texting me. The first few messages were mocking and mean, like she thought the whole thing was a joke, like I would just run back to her. She definitely thought I was bluffing, that I wouldn't actually go through with leaving. But a few days later, I went back to the house with a friend to get the rest of my belongings, and she was shocked. She couldn't believe I was being serious. I think that was the moment she realized it was really over. One of her last messages to me said, "I hope you know you'll never find someone like me again." Seriously? I blocked her after that. I couldn't take it anymore. It was just too much.
Okay, let us fast forward a bit. The whole breakup with Madison was a disaster, and it took me a while to get my bearings. But life goes on, right? A few months later, my 15-year high school reunion came up. I was not sure if I wanted to go, but a bunch of my friends talked me into it. It ended up being a great time. It was nice to see all the old faces and reconnect with people I had not seen in years. Just a really positive, fun atmosphere. And then there was Ashley. Let me tell you about Ashley. Ashley was in my high school class. She was this tall, stunningly beautiful girl. We were friendly and had some classes together, but we were not particularly close. She was one of those girls who was just naturally cool, you know? After high school, she became a model, and not just any model, a really successful one. I had seen her in magazines and online ads. If you're into fashion, you might recognize her name. I had not talked to her in at least 7 years, maybe more. So I'm at the reunion, having a good time, when I notice that Ashley is not there. But her best friend from high school was. They were still really close, which I thought was cool. It showed that Ashley had not changed much despite her success. I went over to her friend just to say hi and catch up. We were talking, and she had this big smile on her face the whole time. When I mentioned Ashley, her smile got even bigger. She made this face and said, "I know she is going to kill me for telling you this, but you know she has always had a crush on you." I just laughed. I mean, come on. Ashley, a successful model, having a crush on me? It seemed completely ridiculous. Even in high school, we did not run in the same circles. We were friendly, but nothing more. There was no way. And now that she's a model? No chance. It was flattering, of course, to think that someone like her would find me attractive, but I figured that was just a high school thing that she had long forgotten about. I told her friend that I didn't think Ashley even remembered me, but she insisted. She said that Ashley had asked her to check me out at the reunion to see if I still looked as good as I did in high school. And then she said, "She's still into you, so if you're single and you're not scared of girls with careers, you might as well give it a shot." I spent the rest of the night thinking about that conversation. It was all so unexpected. I won't lie, it felt good to know that someone like Ashley was interested in me, especially after what had happened with Madison. It felt like here was this woman who my ex would have considered out of my league, and she was supposedly crushing on me. It made me realize how pointless Madison's comments were, and how much she had tried to bring me down. It gave me a huge confidence boost. All right, let's fast forward a bit to when Ashley and I had been talking for a few weeks and decided to make things official. I booked a flight to Brussels to visit her. She was going to be there for a few weeks working on a project, so I figured it was the perfect time to see her and get a taste of her world. Booking that flight felt like a big step. It wasn't just buying a plane ticket. It was me committing to making this relationship work, despite the distance and time differences. I was both excited and a little nervous. I hadn't been on a plane in years, and the thought of flying all the way to Europe was a bit daunting, but it was worth it for Ashley. I finally arrived in Brussels, wary, jet-lagged, but excited to see her. She met me at the airport, and when I saw her, my heart skipped a beat. She had this incredible presence. Even in a casual outfit, she looked like a model. The first few days were a whirlwind. Ashley and her friend showed me around Brussels. We took in the Eiffel Tower, wandered around the charming cobblestone streets, indulged in delicious Belgian chocolate and maybe two, and tried to figure out just how many different kinds of beer there really were. I must admit, I felt a little out of place at times. This world was so different from mine, but their openness and friendliness quickly put me at ease. They were just so down to earth, despite the fact that Ashley and Co. were models. It helped me see that being a model was just a job for her, and it hadn't changed her as a person. It took me a little while to get used to the difference in how they were treated, but I soon realized that it was just a part of the world they navigated every day. It was just a part of their lives as models. I started seeing how Ashley was treated differently than I. It was a new experience for me. Now, I was in Brussels with Ashley, seeing this different world firsthand. It was fascinating, but also a bit unsettling. There were moments when I felt a little overwhelmed, like I was in a movie somewhere. I wasn't sure how I fit into her glamorous life, but Ashley always made sure to make me feel included and welcomed. It was a good first impression of this new world of hers. The trip was absolutely amazing. Brussels was beautiful, of course, but being there with Ashley was incredible. It felt like a dream come true. It showed me that I should not give up on love because of one bad experience. There were still good people out there, people worth fighting for. She even brought me to one of her photo shoots. I got to watch her work, see her in her element, and cheer her on from the sidelines. I even took some of my own photos. It was so cool to see her doing what she loved, and it made me feel even more connected to her, like I was really part of her life. So I was in Brussels having the time of my life with Ashley. I took a bunch of photos during the photo shoot and decided to post a few of them on Instagram. I did not post them to my main feed though. Instead, I shared them on my close friends story, expecting only a small group of people to see them. Here's the thing, I completely forgot that my ex, Madison, was still on my close friends list. I rarely use Instagram, so I did not think to block her there. I had blocked her everywhere else, but not Instagram. Big mistake. I got a message from her just a few hours after posting the photos. Remember, we had not talked in almost a year at this point. The message said, "Who is that? Why are you playing groupie?" with a laughing emoji. I calmly replied, "That is my girlfriend." I did not say anything else. She did not respond right away. I could see the little typing indicator appear and disappear several times over the next 10 minutes, like she was writing something, deleting it, and then writing something else. Finally, she just sent a snarky message, "Sure." That is when I decided to go for it. I told her she did not have to believe me. Then I said, "If you thought you were out of my league, then Ashley is out of this world." I also asked her, "How is your man from back then doing?" I knew it would sting. She read the message but did not respond. And then I blocked her on Instagram. I knew it was probably petty of me to say those things, but honestly, I felt like she deserved it. And I did not want her to have any more access to my life, any more chances to get under my skin. I will admit, though, I was curious about her reaction. And that, my friends, is the end of the story. It has been quite a journey, to say the least, but I can honestly say that I am happier than I have ever been. Ashley and I have been dating happily ever since our trip to Brussels, and I will not lie, I'm thinking about proposing before the end of the year. Don't tell her, though. Ashley is a real blessing in my life. She is kind, she is funny, she is smart, she is beautiful both inside and out, and she makes me feel like the luckiest man in the world. I'm really glad things did not work out with Madison, because if they had, I never would have met Ashley. I know some people might judge me. They might say, "Oh, he's just with her because she's a model," or "long distance never works." But I don't care. I refuse to let anyone's negativity ruin my relationship with Ashley. She is amazing, and I'm really excited about our future. If things don't work out, you can come back here and tell me I told you so, but I really don't see that happening. Looking back on everything, I've learned some important lessons that I want to share with anyone who might be going through something similar. First, trust your gut. If something feels off, it probably is. I ignored those red flags for way too long because I didn't want to be the jealous boyfriend, but my instincts were right all along. Second, you deserve someone who respects you and values the relationship. Madison's arrogance and her belief that she could do whatever she wanted showed me that she never truly respected me or our relationship. No one should ever make you feel like you're lucky just to be with them, especially when they're the ones who betrayed you. Third, don't let someone else define your worth. Madison tried to make me believe I would never find anyone better, that I was beneath her, but that was her insecurity talking, not reality. I found someone who actually values me and treats me with respect. Fourth, sometimes the worst experiences lead to the best outcomes. If Madison hadn't cheated, if she hadn't shown her true colors, I might have stayed in that toxic relationship. I never would have reconnected with Ashley. I never would have found real happiness. And finally, karma is real. Madison thought she could treat me however she wanted and that I would just take it. She thought she was untouchable because of her looks. But in the end, she lost someone who genuinely cared about her, and I found infinitely better. Justice prevailed.
not because I sought revenge, but because I chose to walk away and open myself up to something better. So if you're going through something similar, here's my advice. Don't settle for someone who makes you feel small. Don't ignore the red flags just because you're afraid of being alone. And most importantly, know your worth. There are good people out there who will treat you the way you deserve to be treated. Sometimes you just have to be brave enough to walk away from the wrong person to find the right one. Trust me, it's worth it.